everybody, and welcome back to Blood, Monsters, and Fears, a horror monster movie podcast, hosted by me, Craig Brosnan.
And me, Anastasia Castleberry.
And we're back after a short break again. Sorry about that. We're going to try to be better. Things happened. But we're back, and we're back with one of my all-time favorite movies. And this was the first time Anna has seen it.
It's true.
And that movie is the original Godzilla from 1954. It is perfect, pretty much, if you ask me. But I'm a little biased. I'm very nostalgic with Godzilla. I grew up with it, and I still watch all the movies over and over again as an adult today. It means a lot to me, but we decided to do this, like, we say it's a horror monster movie podcast. It's still more of a horror movie podcast, but this movie is very important, and it is a monster movie, technically. And I would argue it's a horror movie with the way that it's filmed and presented. And if you look up a lot of list of top horror movies of all time, usually this is on there. So it seems, to me at least, that this is kind of regarded as a horror movie, even though it's not traditional in that sense.
I would argue this is a scary movie, especially for the time that it came out. I can imagine being a little kid and having this scare the crap out of me for sure. I mean, just the concept of a giant monster that's a product of nuclear waste and just, the almost complete destruction of mankind. Wow.
Mm-hmm. But, no, yeah, and there's a lot of scenes, like, a lot of future Godzilla movies, one of their faults, in my opinion, is they don't often show the aftermath or even during the destruction of things. They don't really show the human side of it, and they do show a lot of that in this movie, and it is actually terrifying. And it was a very interesting way, especially back then, to use this as basically just propaganda against nuclear warfare. And I don't think it ever has been done or will be done this well again. Usually symbolism in movies isn't this well done, if you ask me. So.
No, I agree for sure. And I mean, I don't think it has been done this well again, or that it ever can be, because they were also right off the tail end of the Second World War. So
yeah.
I mean, not that they don't still feel the effects of Hiroshima and everything now, but they were still fresh in their minds and in the effects that it had on the world that they lived in directly. And thinking it had been like, what, 8 years, give or take?
Yeah.
It's it's sad.
And I think it's going to be interesting to get your take, especially since you're such a history buff, and this is very well-rounded in actual real-world history, even if it's about a giant lizard. So,
I think, yeah, I mean, obviously, yes, but I think also the human world that they put around this is very real, and it shows so much of what I can't even imagine what it must have felt like to live at this time and be so right off the tail end of something so horrific, and the idea of what it could do to the world and what it can do to people, and the lengths that people will go to survive. Human resilience, I think, is definitely a big part of this movie. Like, a big message here isn't just the propaganda against nuclear war, but people's willingness to adapt to survive.
Mm-hmm. So a few opening kind of things I would like to point out about this movie is it was written by Shigeru Kayama, and it was directed by Ishiro Honda. And Ishiro Honda was very famous at the time for doing documentaries on war films, which is pretty fitting for his first foray into fiction or science fiction to be war related. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Kamikaze Special Attack Troop was an early idea for the film, but Toho scrapped it because it was considered too grim and too close to World War II, which I think is interesting. So it's like he took his idea of wanting to do a movie based around World War II and just kind of made it way less realistic, I guess. So he kind of did what he wanted at the end, just less grounded in reality.
He did what he had to make the movie that he wanted to make.
Yeah, I mean, he wanted to make a statement, and he did. He just did it in a much more creative way than traditionally it was going to happen, which is interesting. The movie was originally going to be in stop motion, but it would have taken 7 years to make, so that's why Godzilla ended up being a man in a suit instead of, like, King Kong, for example.
How How long did it take to make King Kong?
I don't know. I should have looked that up. I actually don't know. But that is interesting. I also think that King Kong just had a bigger team, though, too, behind it.
Oh,
so
for sure.
even though it was, like, even older than Godzilla, it was a Hollywood movie, you know?
Yeah,
so
totally different.
Not a way smaller budgeted movie outside of America. So, and the movie was shot in 51 days, which is pretty wild, actually. I don't know relative to now if that's super short or if that was common back then, but I thought that seemed fairly short. So
I think that, I mean, to me, like 51 days is a month and a half, maybe, and it's funny to think that they went from having the, you know, the idea that it would take them 7 years to make this to being like, yeah, no, it'll be fine, real quick.
And I think I think everything with the suit holds up pretty well too. So.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean,
like especially the way it's shot, and maybe it's just because a lot of the movie is pretty dark too. I think it looks pretty good for what it is. So
I mean, he doesn't look, I mean, okay, I know that's a guy in a suit.
Yeah.
But I feel like even with today's effects and everything, I don't think he looks fake. And I know that is probably going to be problematic, but I don't think he looks fake. Like, I think as real as a giant lizard can be, that's not CGI, I think he looks real, and I think that's why people were so afraid when they saw this.
Yeah, there's I don't think I put it in the fun facts area towards the end. For those of you that are listening for the first time, usually Anna does all the fun facts and the breakdowns and the summaries and all that stuff, but I did it for this one just because it's Godzilla, so we thought it'd be fun for me to take that role this time. I did see that there's a part in the movie where Godzilla destroys like a really famous movie theater in Japan, and I guess at the time there was reports of people running out of the theater because they thought that it was actually getting destroyed, which I think is funny.
That's so funny.
Like, of course that sounds ridiculous, but I guess at the time things were different back then, especially with how good the special effects were for 54.
Yeah, they're watching it and they're like, "Oh, this is happening in real time. There's a giant monster outside, and I can't feel the earth shake, but he's there." All right.
Silly to think about, but I still thought that was interesting nonetheless.
For sure.
So I guess we can go ahead and get started on the plot. Forgive me if I'm not way too good at this. This is my first time doing a synopsis. So
I have high hopes for him.
Oh man, now I feel pressured. Alrighty. So the movie starts out with a amazing title sequence where you just hear a bunch of like super thunderous stomps, and then you hear Godzilla's epic roar, and then it leads into some opening credits, and it's a really good title sequence, and they play Godzilla's theme for the first time, which I still think is like top 3 songs from any movie ever. It's so iconic and so good.
Like, I had heard that without ever seeing this movie.
It's one of those things, it's just so good it's been used in a million things, whether it's parodies or homages, or I'm pretty sure it's been in every Godzilla movie too, except for the 98 Matthew Broderick one and the 2014 American Hollywood reboot. I think those are the only times that song wasn't used in a Godzilla film, and rightfully so, because it's a fucking banger.
Oh my god.
It's good. And then, so we cut to our first scene of the movie, which is where we see a bunch of people partying on a Japanese freighter called the Ikomaru, and it is suddenly destroyed. There's big waves, and everyone's like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, there's a giant wave, and everybody dies.
That first tsunami life.
Exactly. So everyone's like, that's weird. And then another ship gets sent out to investigate it, and then a few hours later, the same thing happens to that ship. So everybody at the, like, headquarters of the freighter is like, what the fuck is going on? Like, there's no storm activity, nothing. Why are these ships disappearing? That doesn't make much sense. So then, a little bit later, a fishing boat from a nearby island called Odo Island also becomes destroyed, and one survivor washes up on shore, and the fishing in the area suddenly drops to 0. No one's able to catch any fish, and they don't know why, so they're just like, what is happening with the ocean? Like, we're missing ships, we can't get any food, we're hungry, we can't travel. Why? What is going on? And then they blame sorry, let me think. I'm trying to think of how to word it.
Okay.
So there's some people go to the Odo Island to investigate, and there's an old fisherman, and he blames what's happening on the legendary ancient sea creature known as Godzilla. His granddaughter doubts him and calls him a crazy old man, saying he's just making stuff up. And then all of a sudden he gets weirdly serious and angry, and he says that Godzilla will eat all of her cows. And I always thought that was really funny, though, because it was like, it started out kind of lighthearted, and then like his face just dropped dead serious. He's like, "You motherfucking bitch, you're gonna lose all your food if you doubt this sea god. Watch your mouth."
I mean, don't disrespect your grandfather, first of all.
That's fair.
Especially when he threatens your cows.
Mm-hmm.
You should know better.
So then some reporters come to Odo Island to further investigate what's going on, and there's a villager that tells some reports saying that, And the reporters talk to the villagers, and they tell them what's going on. The boat's missing. The lack of fish being caught while fishing is happening, and they decide to stay overnight to see if any activity happens. And that night, there's a giant storm that happens, and like half of the island is suddenly destroyed. Like a bunch of the houses are gone. There's a couple of people that end up dying, and a bunch of the livestock is gone. And everyone's like, "Oh, what is happening?" Like, no one understands what's going on because they don't see anything. I find it weird that no one was able to see or hear Godzilla overnight. I mean, I guess because it was a storm, but that's a big boy, so I'm a little surprised you couldn't hear them thick legs jigging. And
I think it's also nice to notice that they all seem to like think he's not real and everything, but he's making all this happen.
Exactly, and they're like, "Oh, that's weird. What could it be?"
It couldn't be a giant sea monster, God forbid.
True.
Stranger things haven't happened.
Oh yeah, well, and the one old senile man mentions it, everyone's gonna write it off. So
absolutely,
until
old
their
people
cows get eaten.
Don't tell the truth, old people.
All right, so then there are people from Odo starting to travel to Tokyo because they want to escape the island because they're now scared to live there after all that's been happening. They're not able to keep food. Their houses are getting destroyed. It's a shithole. Fuck Odo. Just kidding. But, yeah, they don't want to be in Odo anymore. So then the villagers and reporters described the damage to the government, and then the government decided to send off a paleontologist named Kyohei Yamane to lead an investigation on the island, and they discovered giant radioactive footprints, and they're very confused because they're like, first of all, there's giant-ass footprints, so that's a little weird. And then they're like, so if we're having issues with radioactive stuff, why is it just in the area of the footprints? They're like, clearly, it's not the whole island, so whatever is connected to these footprints is connected to some sort of radiation poisoning. And they're all concerned about that, of course, because what the hell? And then all of a sudden, there's a giant alarm that goes off, and Yamane and the villagers rush to see what's going on, and little do you know, senile old grandpa was correct, and you see Godzilla's head pop up from the top of the mountain, and everyone's like, what the fuck?
Heck yeah, you see him peek out. He's like, hey, baby.
He looks really goofy in the first shot. I can't lie.
His eyes look really funny. That's the only thing. So that's the only thing, as an addition to my previous statement, is he looks real, except for his goofy ass looking eyes.
See, and I feel like the rest of the movie, he looks good. I just feel like this that opening scene
when he
does look a little odd.
That's alright. We still love him. He's
cute.
Of
course. And one thing, I don't remember if I put it in the fact section or not, too. If I did, I just won't repeat myself. But one thing I love that they actually cut from this scene is they, originally when he came up from the mountain, he had a cow in his mouth.
Oh, gross, no.
You know, to like, kind of like make a nod or at the girl when the grandpa said that he would eat her cows. So I thought that was funny. But I guess the production company said that it looked too grotesque or too violent, so that's why they cut it. And I'm like, but nothing else in the movie was too violent? I'm like, it's just mass destruction, but the cow was what tips you over the edge. See what I did there? Yeah, okay, bad jokes. Alright, moving on. So then they see Godzilla, they all freak the fuck out, and they run away. And then Yaname presents his findings when he goes back to Tokyo. He tells them that they think Godzilla is about 50 meters tall, and that he evolved from an ancient sea creature, becoming the creature that he is. Why did he change into that? They didn't know. But their assumption is that it was the underwater hydrogen bomb testing that caused him to become the way that he is. The government and Yamane start debating about what to do about the monster, but they know that they don't have much time because they keep losing ships out at sea.
Don't you love World War II?
Mm-hmm. So then, after this, they set off a bunch of freights to try to kill the monster, and nothing happens. All the freights go missing. So,
Oh no.
so with the urgency of needing to stop losing people at sea, they dispatch a bunch of frigates. I think that's how you say that. Like some sort of war weapons, and then they want to use that to kill Godzilla. But Yamane is not okay with this because he thinks that Godzilla needs to be studied so they could learn more about the creature. Godzilla survives the attack from the war weapons, and the officials appeal to Yamane for ideas to kill the monster. But then Yamane tells them that Godzilla is probably unkillable since he survived the H-bomb, so they're assuming that he cannot be bested, which is a fair assumption because
He's a
it
giant
doesn't get
lizard.
stronger than the H-bomb.
He's a giant lizard. I don't know why they thought they had a chance.
Alright, so Emiko, who is Yamane's daughter, decides to break off her arranged marriage to Yamane's colleague, Dr. Serizawa, because of her love for Sorry, I'm terrible at pronouncing Japanese names, forgive me. Hideto Ogata, who is a salvage ship captain.
Who is so easy on the eyes.
He is a very handsome man. Even today, if you look up what this man looks like now, he's like, I think like almost 80 years old and he's still handsome as fuck.
He's dumb handsome.
He's also very tall for a Japanese man, so good for him.
He's like 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
And then Serizawa is the scary eye patch man, who's definitely looming. Like, he's a very, like, troubled character.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this on the side also, that that beautiful girl is engaged to him in a marriage, you know, to be set up by her father, and they do not make that clear in this movie.
No,
whatsoever.
not really.
But it does I don't want to say foreshadow, but it makes future events in the film make a lot more sense, which is very important. So, Serizawa, our man, eye patch guy.
Yes, he's the best character in the movie, I'd say. So.
He's so moral.
I love him.
He's so scientific.
So, a reporter comes to interview Serizawa, and Emiko escorts the reporter to Serizawa's home, and he's not very happy about this. He refuses to talk about his work that's going on to the reporter, and he gives Emiko a demonstration of his recent project after the reporter leaves, and he tells her that she has to keep it a secret. She's like, you can't tell anybody about what I'm about to fucking show you.
And it doesn't show you what it is. It just shows you her being absolutely horrified, which is so good. I love when something terrifying happens and you have no idea what it is. I think that is a big piece of magic that films have lost in that transition between specifically black and white to the way films are made now. But it's scary. Like, it freaked me out. I'm 24 years old in the modern world, and I was still scared, even though you don't see what she's looking at.
Yeah, it's very well acted, and you could tell what she's looking at. It's scary. And they show it later on, and spoiler alert, it gave me nightmares as a child. So
Oh, my poor little boy.
it was creepy. It was very well done, too. So she gets terrified, and she leaves. And she goes home shortly after that, and then Godzilla surfaces, and he shows up in Tokyo, and starts attacking the city of Shinagawa, and he's walking through, just causing destruction, and then we get this awesome scene of a train starting to go by, and they're like, oh fuck, a giant lizard foot! We weren't expecting this today. They didn't go over that in our training. What do we do about a giant lizard? And then Godzilla sees it, and he's like, bitch, what the fuck, when it runs into his foot, and then he picks it up, and he's just like, and then he does his whole, his atomic breath thing and fucks it up, and then after that he's like, I'm tired, and then Godzilla decides to leave and go home. And then Godzilla goes into the ocean to take a nap, well deserved after a nice day of destruction.
And part of me is like, wow, Godzilla, you really gotta just walk through town, ruin people's lives, but you gotta think, if he really is this age-old sea god monster creature thing, it's like, he was here before you, and you're, like, all over what probably was his kitchen at one time.
That's fair.
And it's so disrespectful. I'm with Godzilla, first of all.
I really wish, okay, so later on, in later Godzilla movies, there is a point in time where they show what Godzilla looked like before he became, like, the giant monster that he is. We don't get that in this movie, and I kind of wish there was like a flashback scene of what he looked like, because I think that would be really cool.
Wait, there's a pre. Wait.
You've seen it?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, you have. It was in Godzilla vs. King Kong, or not King Kong. Godzilla versus King Ghidorah.
Okay,
Remember they go into the past and then they thank Steven Spielberg.
Oh my god. Okay, so just if we can sidetrack just a smidge.
Yeah, Steven Spielberg is canonically a soldier in the Godzilla universe.
Yes, he is. And I don't know if I can stress enough to anyone who doesn't know Craig is he fucking loves Godzilla. I cannot stress that enough. And have I contributed to this? Yes. Do I regret it? No, but
She thought about it.
All I can say is I wish I could show people just the sheer amount of Godzilla merchandise in this room. The really cool standee that he has is just full of movies that I don't even think I've seen through a chunk of them. So he is referencing a movie that I saw like a year ago.
Yeah.
And these are all so bizarre. And the first one, this one's amazing, life-changing.
Mm-hmm.
And the others are fun. In a way, this movie just is not. And I don't remember there being, like, primordial Godzilla.
That is the thing.
But, God, oh no, just the thought of it freaks me out a little bit.
Yes, I am a ridiculously large Godzilla fan. But I grew up with it. Like, I know a lot of people that grew up with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Power Rangers or different things like that. I was all about Godzilla. So
I was specifically a Power Rangers and Ninja Turtle kind of person.
And I know those are things that I would like, but I was never exposed to them. So it's like if I tried to watch them now, I don't know if I would enjoy them. I think Power Rangers, there's a better chance of me liking than Turtles.
I don't know, because Godzilla walked so the turtles could run.
Did he?
Not the turtles run, but they are also a product of, waste and being mutated by
I
stuff
guess
like that.
The turtles are technically kaijus, right?
Oh, hell.
Because they're above average sized turtles.
They're extremely large in consideration. Like, if you ever see, like, a normal little
Just
sea
kidding.
turtle.
They're not turtle. They're not kaijus.
How dare you.
Well, because then I'll have to, by default, agree on the argument of Clifford the dog being a kaiju, and I refuse.
That is a fucking kaiju.
Clifford is not a kaiju.
If you're watching this on YouTube, like, because yes, Clifford is a kaiju. Comment for no, Clifford is not a kaiju.
No.
I will.
Comment anyway.
No.
No.
Okay, then either yes, he's a kaiju, or no, he's a kaiju. But we all know he's a fucking kaiju.
Onto the plot of Godzilla. Alright, so after the Japanese Special Defense Forces consult and talk to some international experts about Godzilla and what the hell to do about a giant, massive lizard monster, they construct a 30-meter tall and 50,000-volt electric fence across the coast to deploy and try to stop and kill Godzilla. Yamane is really upset because he finds out that there's no plans to study Godzilla, just to kill him. And he wants to study him specifically to discover his resistance for radiation and figure out why he was resistant to the radiation for the H-bomb. But he goes home all upset and sad about not being able to study him, and he sees Emiko and Ogata waiting there, and he's hoping to get his consent for them to get married. And when Ogata disagrees with Yamane, arguing that the threat that Godzilla possesses outweighs any potential benefits of studying the monster, Yamane tells him to leave, which, I don't know, I thought that was a little weird.
It was very overdramatic, but I guess you have to think about, like, the perspective that Yamane would be coming from is, he wants to look at Godzilla and poke and prod at him and be like, why are you resistant to radiation? Because not just because, okay, you're this scary lizard god that's been alive for a millennia, but if he can resist that, maybe they can find out how other human beings can resist that. Mm-hmm. So the same things that happened in specifically this person's lifetime won't happen again. And so I get it. And I mean, especially when he's dealing with something that's so heavy, and then his daughter and this super handsome man roll up.
God, he's
and
so
they're
hot.
like, God, he's like, I want to marry your daughter, and he's like, the fuck, get out of my house. I'm tired of this. Like, there are way heavier things going on. Like, they're gonna kill Godzilla, and he's like, so what? I want to bone your daughter. You know?
Not quite, but...
I don't know if you know what marriage is all about, Frank.
Oh my god. Alright, so then Godzilla rolls up to Tokyo again, all angry and lizard-like, and they're all ready with their giant fence, and then Godzilla's like, please. And then he fucking burns it down with some goddamn atomic breath, and it's dope as fuck. I love the effect they use for this. It's kind of silly looking, again, when they show up and like close on his face, it just kind of looks like air coming out. Like they just have like a fog machine. But when it shows the towers melting, it looks so cool.
It does look really cool.
It's so cool. I love the way that they did that.
Those practical effects?
Yes, it's they just made them out of wax and they pointed a hairdryer at them and then they sped up the footage, so that's how it looks like it's melting quickly.
And it looks good. It looks really good. That
Yeah.
part is held up for sure.
I think that's one of the best looking special effects in the practical effects in the movie for sure. So then there's some further attempts to try to kill Godzilla with tanks and fighter jets, and they all fail because Godzilla is a baddie and nothing can destroy him, and he just kind of like takes it off like flies, swatting flies off of him.
And I love it because, you know, he kind of turns to the friends that he doesn't have, and he's like, hold my beer. All right, I'll hold my beer. And then he just absolutely wastes all these humans, and it's like, you should not bother him. Let him walk through town. And I feel like that's what distresses him for sure. He's like, the fuck are those? Like, if a human saw ants in its house, that's what Godzilla is experiencing at this time.
And then Godzilla leaves. He goes home to the ocean again. It's time for another nap. He did his work for the day. He clocked into his 9 to 5. He's very on schedule. And then we get one of the saddest scenes in the movie, which is the hospital. And it just shows a bunch of people dismantled and burned and dying on their beds and suffering from radiation sickness. They're all fucked up from Godzilla being around because, like, not only is he blowing everything up, he's also literally like a walking bomb of radiation. So everything around him is getting radiation infection and poisoning.
It's true, because he's like raw radiation at this point.
Exactly. Like, they don't like visually show it, but it's something that they figure out very quickly, and a fear that they had from the beginning when they saw his footprints and saw that they were leaving back points of radiation on Odo Island.
They wave the Geiger counter over it. I mean, and that's, again, it's just these small moments in this movie that they are so well acted because they look absolutely horrified.
Yeah.
Like,
they all look like they're actually dying.
I know, and it's so sad.
It's very sad. And it's like, that's very clearly to show like the effects of Hiroshima. Alright, so Amiko is all choked up and sad about what's going on, of course, and she tells Ogata about Serizawa's research, and she broke the promise, that stupid bitch. A weapon called the Oxygen Destroyer is what Serizawa's been working on, and it disintegrates oxygen atoms and causes organisms to die of a rotting... how do you say that word?
Asphyxiation.
I was gonna say asphyxiation. I thought that was right, but I didn't want to sound wrong.
And that's what he was showing her earlier. That it cuts away, and you just see her like hide in his shoulder, and it's scary. It's very scary.
No, yeah. So it shows what they showed her earlier, and it's real-time footage of fish fading into just skeletons.
It's so gross.
And it's really well done and very creepy. It freaked me the fuck out as a kid. And even as an adult, I'm like, yeah, it totally makes sense why that scared the shit out of 7-year-old Craig.
Poor baby.
But it's a very well done scene. It's probably the most horror-ish aspect of this movie, I'd say. So, and it is another scene that just holds up incredibly well. Alrighty. So, oh, I lost my place again, sorry.
You're okay. About the super weapon versus oxygen destroyers.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Amiko and Ogata go to Serizawa, and they try to talk him into using the oxygen destroyer, but he refuses because he's afraid that if he uses the device, the superpowers of the world will force him to use more and make more oxygen destroyers to get used as a super weapon in the future. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? To some real-life weapons. Exactly. So, after he sees what's happening in Japan, Serizawa, and he's worried about what could happen or continue to happen to the rest of the world, Serizawa decides to accept their proposition of using the oxygen destroyer, but Serizawa, before he decides to go out there and use the oxygen destroyer, he sets his notes and all of his information about building the machine on fire so that they cannot be recovered.
Yes, I think it's very much
very
like,
powerful scene.
Yes, because it's very like, if he's gonna use it, it's gonna be one time and that's it, and it's on his terms.
Yeah.
And he's so human.
Yeah,
I think
and
that's why I like this
and Emiko's in the background crying because they don't say it, but it's implied. You can tell that he's going to take himself down with his plans so that they could never be used. Which is apparently based off of what a real-life woman did, I guess, with something to do with atomic bomb research. Like, I guess she, like, did kill herself in some way, so that way, like, the information can never go out there. I'd have to look up exactly what it was. But I know Serizawa's character is based off of some, like, his actions are based off of something that a lady that knew too much basically really went through in real life, too.
I mean, how can you live with yourself?
Exactly.
That's definitely a very heavy thing here as well, like, the undertones of no matter what you do, everyone is suffering. Whether it's going to be Godzilla destroying all these things because of something that humans did, or it's that, or he uses this oxygen destroyer that, will kill however much life within however big of a span, and people will suffer for that. And how is he supposed to be able to live with himself?
Yeah, I mean, he's basically a walking world destroyer,
know,
whether he wants to be or not, because if people find out who he is, they can use that against him or force him. So
it's very much that lesser of two evils.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be the reason any of that stuff happens. So shortly after this, a Navy ship takes Ogata and Serizawa to plant the device in Tokyo Bay. And after they find Godzilla, Serizawa unloads the device and cuts off his air support underwater to take the oxygen destroyer to his grave with him to kill him and Godzilla. Godzilla is then destroyed, and lots of people are sad and they mourn Serizawa's death because, of course, it's very sad.
It is sad.
It's sad that it had to come to that, but it really was their only option because it was either destroy Godzilla and destroy the Doctor, or only destroy Godzilla and then the world know that someone out there has the information with that kind of power.
And I mean, it's also so sad because I don't think at the end of the day he wants to do this. He doesn't want this particular creature who didn't ask for any of this shit to happen to him to have to suffer. But it's kind of like a you go, I go kind of thing, and it's sad, but it's very poignant the way that it's done. And I mean, he makes sure that he cuts off his oxygen supplies, but not Ogata's, and Ogata's like, what the fuck? He's like, for real? He's like, I had a feeling this is going to happen, but I didn't know if he'd actually go through with it. And you watch him on this boat struggling with himself, and it's so sad. It's because, you do get, I would fare with as many kaiju films I've seen in the last 2 years of dating Craig. There is a really good balance between the human story and the kaiju story. There's a lot of really good overlap. They have a lot of great screen time together, and it's very nice in a way to see that they're on that level. They're equal.
Yeah.
And that's something I feel like, as much as I love all these other Godzilla movies and the experience I've had seeing them, they fall short in that.
No, yeah, the only one, and I know it's your favorite movie that you've seen so far, that comes close enough is Shin Godzilla.
I love that
which
movie.
was a 2016 Toho movie. We'll inevitably do that one because that one is also borderline horror.
It's fucking
and it's
scary.
Also just an amazing movie. So we'll do that one eventually. But in terms of, that balance between human and kaiju action in a good way, of like, I feel like it's perfectly balanced, I think this is the one that does it the best.
I agree.
So, because even Shin Godzilla has a few slow moments compared to this movie. In this movie, I think it goes by real fast because it's so perfectly paced.
Yeah, and it's not a particularly long movie either.
Nah. I think it's only about an hour and a half. I could be wrong. But the last thing that happens in the movie, basically, is Yamane states that if nuclear weapon testing continues, another Godzilla may rise in the future. And then that's pretty much it.
And I mean, rightfully so, dude.
Uh-huh.
They need to stop messing with things that don't belong to them.
The creators of this movie really wanted to make a statement, so...
Don't. Don't. Just don't.
Pretty much. Alright, so now I have some good Goji fun facts for you all.
Y'all, he got that good.
I did research a lot of good ones, because I knew a lot of these already, but some I didn't. And I wanted to make sure that these were shared, because they're all very interesting, because it's always cool to see how certain things were done in movies that were first of its kind like this. So, let's go. Alright, first one, Gojira, which is the Japanese name for Godzilla. It is a combination of the Japanese words for gorilla and whale. And that was supposed to be the original basis for its design. Which, personally, I never saw. I don't think he looks like a gorilla or a whale. So I always thought that was kind of odd, but that's where the name comes from.
I don't know. He looks like... I don't know. I want to say that he looks like a lizard, but he doesn't. He kind of looks like if there was a short-snouted alligator and it somehow became bipedal. Like, the really long tail.
Yeah, he's really his own thing. So
he really is.
Alright, so in the original 1954 version of the film, it was released only 9 years after the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The producer said the theme of the film from the beginning was the terror of the bomb. Mankind had created the bomb, and now nature was going to take revenge on mankind.
Which is so obvious that that's what they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there are, especially in modern film, there are a lot of directors and producers and writers, whoever, who claim that their movie means all these things. But it's like, bitch, where? Because they never make good on what they're claiming is supposed to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And this one just... It hits every mark. It really is a beautiful movie. It's a sad movie. It's a scary movie. It's everything it does everything it sought out to do in not a lot of time. In a time where people were not down to vibe with a giant lizard, you know?
Pretty much.
They did.
Alright, so this one I didn't know until I was doing some research, and this one's gross and depressing. So Godzilla's skin was intentionally reminiscent of the keloid scar tissue on many survivors of the bombings.
I didn't know that.
That's fucked up.
That's so fucked up.
It is, but it definitely makes the statement, because he has that crusty, wavy skin.
Oh, I think you're pretty Godzilla.
Alright, so next up, the Godzilla's attack on the fishing boat at the beginning of the original movie was inspired by a real-life event. Less than 8 months before the movie's release, a tuna fishing boat drifted out into fallout from an American atomic H-bomb tests, subjecting the crew to severe radiation poisoning.
Which I actually know a lot about this.
Really? No way.
Yes, it's really funny that this is something you...
Talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
That's funny. I didn't know you knew about that.
They did a lot of that out in the Pacific Ocean, in that in-between, where it's technically international waters, so whatever happens there, no one's actually responsible for it. That's why so much of this testing occurred.
Okay.
And I mean, mind you, this wasn't only being done by America, this was also being done by Russia.
Uh-huh.
And so when you go onto a certain spot in the ocean,
mm-hmm.
it's technically a free-for-all. And the lasting effects that this had, I don't even think that they had been there that long, if I remember right. Like, I read about this in college. That was a while ago. That they had no idea why they started to feel so ill, why they were in so much horrible pain. And then one of them just happened to go to the doctor or something, and they're like, oh no. Because obviously they'd seen this before.
Yeah.
And I've seen photos of these people that this happened to.
Man.
Absolutely horrific.
That's wild.
So I understand. I really do think it's very funny that this is something. I also know a lot about, like, Chernobyl.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's the same. The
mm-hmm.
effects were the same. The horrible disfigurement of the human body that occurs, and why people are so afraid of it, and why they felt the need to make something like this. Because, I mean, that was 40 years later, and it happened in a way again, because humans were fucking around with things that aren't for them. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
What she said.
Anyway.
Alright, so Godzilla's iconic roar was created by rubbing a rinse-and-coated glove up and down the strings of a contrabass.
What's a contrabass?
It's like a giant kind of cello almost.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. So that's an interesting thing, because it's like, It's just a very weird thing that you wouldn't think that that's what it came from, just a musical instrument with a glove rubbed on it. I thought that was interesting.
Like, I can't imagine what I thought
exactly.
it was making it, but it
because it's such a
wasn't
unique
that.
sound that you can't think of where it would even come from, you know?
Like, I picture, like, a yellow kitchen glove on that.
Alright, so the first Godzillum suit had to be scrapped and remade because the original one was 220 pounds, so the actor couldn't move in it for very long without passing out because it was too much work to move around in it.
They needed, like, a Dave Bautista, so
Pretty much
extra
it.
swole.
Yep, and Godzilla was inspired by the earlier American film The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, and special effects legend Ray Harrison was mad about it because he felt Godzilla's design was a rip off of his design.
So, a fun fact about this movie is we've seen, like, the first 15 minutes?
Yeah, we didn't get far.
Of it on Hulu, like, a year ago, and we never finished it. But we clicked on it, and he's like, oh my god, it's basically Godzilla. And it was like, I think this is older than a Godzilla.
Yeah.
And
from what we saw, it actually did seem pretty good, so I want to finish it eventually. I don't remember what happened. I think we were just like, let's get food instead of watch a movie, because we like to eat. So, we probably went to Denny's or something, because we're trash. But, alright, so, next up, the electrical towers that melt... Oh, yeah, I already said that earlier, but I'll say it anyway, because I started... Yes, the electrical towers that Godzilla melts with his radioactive breath were actually made of wax. Special effects crew melted off by blowing hot air on them, as well as shining a hot studio lights on them for the white-hotted effect.
I love that.
Which I love
love
that
knowing
scene.
that because it looks so good. The way that they just bend over
it's so
and it
cool.
just ceased to exist in a way is like, wow, no.
The Godzilla movies, of course, have inspired a lot. And one of the biggest things that they inspired were George Lucas's use of miniatures in Star Wars.
I mean, wow, like, to think that, given I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan, I don't hate it, but I'm not crazy about it, but knowing that I didn't know that those were miniatures until very recently. That's what he had done. And to think that they paved the way for that to happen. For this super iconic thing that's loved so fiercely around the world. They're like, yeah, the big Jigga did that. He's a big Jigga. Big Jigga baby.
He's our thick lizardy boy.
I love him. He's so thick. He got mama thighs.
So, also, Godzilla was almost the first rubber creature suit to be used in a film, but the creature from the Black Lagoon came out 6 months earlier, so that's the only reason it wasn't the first one to use a full rubber foam suit.
Shout out to my BFF, the creature from the Black Lagoon. His mouth looks like a vagina.
Oh no.
He's got his weird little hands. Craig was actually horrified of him as a child.
That's true. I used to have so I've never seen the movie. It's on our list, especially as a priority. Excuse me while I burp. I'll cut that out. So that's a priority movie for us because I never saw The Creature from the Black Lagoon as a kid. I played the pinball machine at my local pizza parlor, and it scared me enough to give me nightmares about that creature all of my childhood. So I feel like as like a weird closure thing, I need to see that movie and be like, that was very fucking scary. That or I'll have more nightmares. I guess we'll figure it out and update you when we inevitably review that one. But I don't know if we'll get to that this year or not, because I don't remember if we put on the schedule. But we could get to it anytime.
But, you know, anytime. And exactly. I think you guys will hold hands and walk into the sunset, and then you two are the ones who are going to give birth to Godzilla.
Is that what's going to happen?
I firmly believe that. I've watched too much American Dad recently, so...
You just think of all this weird shit happening. Roger's getting to you.
Roger's everything I wish I was.
Alright, so Akihiko Hiratawa, who played Dr. Serizawa, went on to play 7 different scientists in 7 different Godzilla movies, which I just thought was really funny.
No idea.
Yeah, he's in 7 other movies, all playing different doctors. Never Serizawa again. It's always someone different. And the last fun fact, this isn't really a fact, it's just a take. Akira Takarada, who is the guy who plays Ogata, has aged so well that's unfair. That motherfucker is in his 80s, and he looks like he's 60 at most.
He looks so good.
It's not fair. He's still attractive.
Like, are you using a parasol? Like, are you working out every day? Do you look in the mirror and think, hell yeah, that's me?
He is a fucking man, I will say that much.
He's... Yeah.
Alright, so we got one write-in for this week. It's a long one, but that's okay. You want to read this, Anna?
Sure.
Okay, so this is from our buddy Taylor. Taylor also does a podcast if anyone wants to check it out. If you're into video games, he does a single-player focused one called The Solo Gamer, and you can find them pretty much anywhere you can get podcasts. So definitely check his podcast out if you like video games like the big fucking nerds I know you all are. So this is what Taylor had to say. I'll give Anna my phone so she can read it.
Hey guys, Taylor writing in. Let me start off by saying that I love this podcast. Wow.
Thank you.
As somebody who fancies himself a big fan of cinema As someone who fancies himself a big fan of cinema and film, usually horror films tend to fly a little bit under my radar. This podcast has given me a perfect excuse to check out a lot of horror and monster movies that I missed and broaden my horizons a little more. You both have done a great job at making a funny, informative, and an entertaining podcast, and I just want to say, keep up the great work. You've got a fan in me.
No,
now,
thank
on
you.
to the movie. That's so sweet. Oh, girl. Okay, so... I just finished Godzilla for the first time not even 5 minutes ago, so this film is still fresh in my mind, and all I have to say is, wow, I was not expecting a film from 1954 to be as good as that was. I agree. Firstly, I'll apologize to start off because this is probably going to be pretty lengthy.
That's okay. You're the only write-in.
That's true. As I have quite a few thoughts about this film. Just so everybody knows where I'm coming from, I'm not exactly the biggest kaiju fan. I haven't seen most of these movies associated, I haven't seen most of the movies associated with this genre of films. My main exposure to anything related to this genre is from Peter Jackson's King Kong.
Which is an amazing movie, by the way.
Which I actually thought was pretty good.
I love Peter Jackson's King Kong. Also, the best licensed movie video game ever made.
I have a very... vague, obscure memory of watching that movie in my living room with my parents on pay-per-view.
Well, you just love Peter Jackson, don't you?
One ring to rule them all.
Exactly.
So, and also the Godzilla 2014 reboot film, which I didn't like at all.
Which is fair. That one's... I enjoy it, but most people don't, and I could completely see why.
I never saw it, for the record.
Yeah, you'll need to watch that one eventually.
Usually the films of this era, I always stupidly associate them with being really cheesy, unrelatable, and overall out of touch with modern audiences. This movie, I felt, had elements of that, but for the most part, was a great film despite some of those flaws. I get where you're coming from, because it's definitely a product of its time.
Yeah.
Something like this, I don't think they'd have the balls to make it now, the way that it's made. No. Because it doesn't need to be disgusting. It doesn't need to be extremely gory.
No.
It gets its point across very well, the way that it is. And I mean, some of the acting's a little bit hammy, and the people are falling all over each other, and they're crying, oh god, Gazelle. Like, I get it. I know where you're coming from, my friend. I found that yeah. Why do I do this?
Talking's hard.
It's very hard. I found the acting to be very good for the most part. All the titular characters I thought were very well fleshed out. My standouts are definitely Serizawa, Yamane, and Hideo. Oh god.
Your man crush of the film.
There always has to be one. There's always going to be
one stupidly attractive person per movie.
So let's recap real quick. So the first one was Raoul.
Yes.
The second one was wait, no one was hot in Hellraiser.
Not really.
I guess. You know what? I guess Larry the Dad, because he's a nice man. And if anyone knows me, that is the sexiest thing, is a man that is kind. And I'm all about that.
And has a good mustache.
Oh, hell yeah.
That's why you like Raoul.
Hey, Raoul. And then in Scream, I think if I had to say any of them were really attractive, I would say it's Billy. The one who's like the... This corn syrup. He's pretty cute for the time. He's not cute anymore, but he was really cute then. And oh god, it's just wow.
He's just a man.
He looks like all of my anime dreams. I don't know how else to put it. Like
you need him to play Spike in live action.
There are tears in my eyes. Yeah, I really thought about it. Anyway. Oh, okay. Some standout scenes to me were was the entire scene of Serizawa talking about his oxygen destroyer falling into the wrong hands, scenes with Emiko in the hospital after the destruction of Tokyo, and the scenes of the government discussing Godzilla as a threat to Japanese trade and prosperity. We never can forget that fresh capitalist society that will always loom over any other theme.
Pretty much.
God. We could always just barter.
No.
But don't get me started. It's also a very dark subject, but one of the facets of the film that stood out to me was the allegory of Godzilla being a sort of physical stand-in or manifestation for the theme of weapons of mass destruction. Specifically, the atomic bomb, which was dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. I found a lot of the scenes of destruction Godzilla leaves in his wake very reminiscent of old videos and photos you see of the destruction of the cities towards the end of World War II.
Yeah, it's fairly close, honestly. The accuracy is very well done, and they definitely referenced actual destruction for the destruction they used
for
in the
sure
film.
I mean, it had been so recent,
Yeah.
and we're talking about people that they were adults when this occurred.
Yeah, like none of these people are young.
No, and so this is like, that's the kind of thing that gets burned in your mind. I think it's very well represented in this film. It makes sense to me that the Japanese culturally would identify the same destruction of Godzilla to these catastrophic events that happened in real life. I could see this being very emotional and frightening imagery for the time, as the movie of Godzilla was only made 9 years after these events. It's really interesting to go back and look at this movie from the lens of someone who was living in the 1950s. This allegory, which, you know, is really dark, I thought was really well thought out for the time this movie was made, and I could see it absolutely scaring the hell out of Japanese and non-Japanese people alike. I agree. I think it's sad to know that a lot of people who would have been alive at that time aren't alive anymore. So, you know, there's that saying that history is bound to repeat itself if we forget about it.
Yeah.
And since those people can't relay that message so much anymore, it very well could happen again, where people just don't listen. They don't want to know the reality. People turn a blind eye, and I think that's why they had guts to make a movie like this, because even then, people didn't want to talk about what happened. They still wanted to sugarcoat it then. Look at the 1950s in the United States.
Yeah.
And how they were actively testing nukes on American soil. Like here in Vegas, where we live currently, my dad's dad was a digger for the atomic testing site that's probably about 40 miles out of town, and every single person that he used to work with has passed away of cancer from radiation. He's the only one that didn't get it, and it's just like they were doing this over and over on our soil and in other places. And to know that, you know, these people are so old, and in 10 years they won't be around to tell these stories.
Yeah.
You know, it's sad.
It's important to preserve it, even if this is one of the more offshoot ways of doing it.
For sure, I think that it's...
Because it still definitely gets the message across 100%.
Absolutely.
I think that actually does... It's almost better than making it not Godzilla, because I think if you put it into a... if you take the idea of the bombs and manifest it into something more tangible and alive, I think that people could see the horror of it better, because they're pretty much showing like what it could be like if it is an evil living being opposed to a bomb or a machine.
I agree. Definitely. It makes it more real. It's definitely more frightening. I know that there are people who are really old now who can't watch this movie. Like, there's some people who can't watch The Blob, who can't watch The Fly, who can't watch Me, the original It, the 2-part with Tim Curry. Fuck no. Because it frightened them so bad, and it's just something that will loom after you forever, and you'll never forget it. And I think that this will outlast any generation, and will always be very important. On to brighter things. I thought the use of special effects for the time were decently good. There was obviously a lot of miniatures and people in suits to capture Godzilla's image, but I thought these scenes were intermingled very well to give off the illusion that they were captured in real life. Specifically, scenes of boats caught on fire in the middle of the ocean, as well as the scenes of Godzilla walking around Tokyo and setting buildings on fire with his atomic fire breath. Question mark. That's exactly what it is, Taylor. That fresh atomic breath. You've eaten too many buffalo wings. You're trying to wash it down with an orange flavored Sprite, and then you fucking burp, and that's very specific, but it happens.
I was gonna say, how often do you get atomic breath?
I'll say it. We eat Wingstop a lot.
That is true.
They just opened one down the road.
Wingstop is the shit.
Oh God. Overall, there are parts of this movie that I think hold up extremely well in 2020, and I think that it's a movie that everybody should see at least once. I think there are plenty of things to appreciate, and I have to say, this movie has made me a Godzilla fan. I could absolutely see myself going back and watching various movies from this series, and it makes me more excited to watch these newer movies that are coming out soon. Great pick this week, and thank you for turning me on to this incredible gem. P.S. If you'll take requests for future episodes, here's a list of some of my favorite horror movies that I would love you both to do. Aliens, The Thing. 28 Days Later, Night of the Living Dead, The Strangers, The Descent, The Silence of the Lambs, The Witch, Predator, 1987, The Terminator, and Annihilation. I've seen all of these multiple times.
I haven't.
Except for Annihilation. I think, Taylor, I assume you mean the one that came out a year ago, 2 years ago with Natalie Portman. Personally, I thought it looked like shit. But, I just can't look at her and not see Padme, and I don't fucking like her.
I think out of all of those, I mean, I'm sure we'll get to them all eventually, but I think Alien and Aliens are the only two I've seen, and those are two of my favorite movies of all time.
Oh, you've seen The Thing?
Oh, yes, The Thing, of course.
God, that's yours.
No, yes, but for the most part, we're trying to mostly do movies that are blind to at least one of us. Mostly blind to me, since Anna's seen most things. But so we'll get to that stuff eventually.
And these are good suggestions, especially when we do get into zombie territory.
No, yeah, which I'm excited.
28 Days Later is amazing. That scared the shit out of me. I remember being so young and when I saw it for the first time and thinking, just hell no, dude. And then when we do eventually get around to The Silence of the Lambs as well, it falls into the very human part. The human category of Godzilla is that there's no supernatural element to what's going on. That's just all humans fucking up, and it's terrifying. It's terrifying. But thank you for writing in, Taylor.
Yes,
I think you had so many good points. I agree with most of what you said. But, that fresh jig, it's going to keep us coming back for more.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
I'm glad you enjoyed the movie, because I know there's one I've been telling Taylor to watch for a while, regardless of not for the podcast. I try to tell everyone to watch this movie.
Oh, he harps on everyone we meet.
It's hard, because everybody just automatically throws Godzilla in, the cheesy territory, because that's what they think of Godzilla. But as fair as I would say that assumption is, the first movie is different, so...
It's a very different movie than the others. I've seen so many.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. So, what would you rate the movie?
Oh, God. I feel like I give everything a 5 out of 5. But this deserves its 5 out of 5.
I was going to say, because this is a 6 out of 5.
Yeah.
To me, movies don't get better than this. So.
It does everything that it wants to do so well. And it is still frightening. And it's still extremely relevant to the world we live in.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of anyone that shouldn't see this movie at some point in their life.
Yes.
Because of everything that it says, everything that it does, the acting, the effects that it has, the nature of the film, the way it was made, how this can never be captured again.
No.
There is nothing in the world that can be made that will be like this and feel like this. It's tangible when you're watching it. This isn't to me in a modern time period, but you feel like you're there. You feel like this is happening to you.
Yeah, this is a very important piece of social commentary, and this is the kind of movie that I think it's required viewing for people that enjoy film, people that enjoy horror movies, monster movies, for just anybody. I think its message is too important to be skipped.
I agree. 10 out of 10.
Mm-hmm. It's the best.
He got them big jiggy thighs, y'all.
He does have very big jiggy thighs.
Just my baby.
So next week we're going to be doing a very spooky movie.
Very different movie.
Very different, scary. A lot of people don't even like watching it because they say it makes them uncomfortable, so I'm very interested.
Oh, and mind you, I have not seen this since I was 12.
I've never seen it. I've just heard how fucked up it is. And that's going to be Rosemary's Baby.
And it's... Which I also... I don't know. We'll get into it next week.
And I'm excited because I know this is an interesting one for how people feel about it, whether they're terrified, they're like legitimately uncomfortable, everything else. So I think this will be a big one. But we got to pull out the big guns this October.
That's right.
We're getting real spooky, guys. So that'll be a fun one, and that'll be coming out the Wednesday after this posts. And if you want to write in, you can of course either tweet at us at BMNF Podcast. You can email us at bloodmonstersandfears@gmail.com. And we recently made an Instagram that we're going to start trying to use. And you handle that, so what's it called? I don't even know.
Give me 2.70 million seconds.
Yeah, we're going to start.
I have nothing posted on it currently,
Sure.
but it is.
But go ahead and follow, because we're going to start posting on it.
And it's just under Blood Monsters and Fears.
There
It is connect on our Fresh Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you'll be seeing some spooky things there
Yes.
shortly.
So we got our YouTube, we got the Instagram, the Twitter. We're gonna work on trying to figure out what happened with Spotify, because for some reason we disappeared on Spotify.
Still not there?
Yeah, I don't know what
man.
happened with that, so I need to work on that this weekend. And we're of course still on Apple Podcasts. We should be good to go on Google Play still. Last I checked, we weren't having any issues there. So if you liked what you heard, of course share with your friends. Share it with your family, share it with your dog, share it with anyone you'd like. Make sure to
share it with your cat first of all.
Okay,
it's
sure.
Halloween.
Share it with your black spooky cat. Thank you all for listening. Make sure if you're watching on YouTube to leave a like and a comment. If you're listening on iTunes or anything or Spotify, leave us a good rating. We'd appreciate it. And we will of course see you next week. Goodbye.
Catch you later.